Friends are there to pick you up when you're feeling a little down. Friends are there to rearrange someone's face when they're acting like a clown.
Kirby, what is your deal, man? Released in 1995 for the original Game Boy, Kirby's Dream Land 2 is the third main series entry for the Kirby series, and a direct sequel to Kirby's Dream Land. It was directed by a man who has pretty much vanished off the face of the earth after co-directing Nightmare in Dreamland. Wherever he is these days, I hope he's doing okay. In terms of development, the most interesting thing we know about is that originally Kirby was intended to ride on top of a tank and other different vehicles. However, the development team received feedback that it'd be more fitting for Kirby to ride on top of animals, so Rick, Coo, and Kine were created. Don't worry though, Kirby did get to fulfill his dream of piloting a tank years later. Simply remarkable. This is a game I have a lot of personal attachment to, as it was one of the first games I ever played. I remember I would take my Game Boy with me wherever I went with a copy of the game, while in later years would frequently look up any content related to it online so I could learn more about it. I even still have my original copy to this day. So whenever this game gets referenced in later titles, be it a remix or not in Rainbow Curse, or the Animal Friends and Gooey's inclusion in Star Allies, I tend to get a tad emotional. As for the plot, after the events of the prior games, Kirby now resides in the Rainbow Islands of Dreamland. However, the rainbows that connect the islands have been stolen by that of newcomer Dark Matter, who has taken control of King DDD via possession, and now wants to turn Dreamland into a dark world. So with the help of his new friends, Kirby sets out on a quest to save Dreamland. While never directly stated in-game, or in the instruction manual, it's been suggested in the Japanese player guide for Kirby's Dream Land 2, and later backed up by a 2019 issue of Nintendo Dream, that the motive for Dark Matter's invasion, and why he targeted Planet Popstar, was simply because he was lonely and grew jealous of everyone there as they were friends with each other. A part of me sort of feels bad for him, especially when other villains were later reformed. On the other hand, he still could have handled it better. So for now, be gone with thee. The best way to describe the game is that it's a mixture of the original Dreamland and Adventure. It keeps a lot of the same elements introduced in Adventure, such as different worlds containing various locations, a save system, and of course, copy abilities. However, the game still keeps a lot of its Dreamland 1 roots, as Kirby cannot slide nor run. Compared to the original, levels are a lot more basic in theme, however make up for it with different mechanics and gimmicks introduced in the various levels, be it sections where wind is blowing you forward, a level that consists of only platforms that break after you step on them, vertical and horizontal auto-scrolling sections, and far more underwater sections where, like in Kirby's Adventure, you can actually swim in them. Not to mention the occasional naked woman made out of star block. The main thing that sets Dreamland 2 apart from its predecessors, other than being one of only 4 Kirby games to save your lives, is most certainly the Animal Friends. Rick, Kine, and Coo made their first debut in this game, and they've since become fan favorites. Kirby can ride on top of them, and each one of them has different pros and cons depending on the situation. Rick is best on land, however struggles with making it over tall platforms. Kine is fantastic underwater with the best water movement in the game, and can re-inhale abilities in the water if you lose one. While Coo is overall the best character in the entire game, having fantastic movement in the air. In order to get the Animal Friends, you can find them hidden in little bags after mini-bosses. If you already have one, you'll instead find Gooey, who will proceed to heal you a little bit. My boy went from a healing item to a playable character in no time flat. Quite impressive. This is also where the copy abilities play into it all. Unlike Kirby's Adventure, there's only a base roster of 7 abilities. However, the Animal Friends have different combinations when using them. What might be a simple long-range projectile thrown Kirby for Rick is a 3-way projectile for Coo. These abilities also have different functions. Spark and Kine can brighten up dark areas and reveal secrets that way. Some, like Spark and Rick, even reference previous abilities. So while the amount seems small at first, it usually ends up having a larger lineup than that of Adventure, and it's one I get a lot of usage out of. Be careful though around the propeller enemy. If they touch you riding an Animal Friend, then they'll take it away. You can defeat it however with ice combinations. Kinda wild thinking how far the mighty has fallen. The Animal Friends and the different combinations are mainly used to their best advantage when achieving the game's good ending. Unlike the prior 2 entries, this game has multiple endings. The bad ending is received by playing through the game normally as you watch Kirby and the Animal Friends walk home and ends with Kine looking up at the sky. The good ending, meanwhile, is unlocked by finding the various rainbow drops hidden in one level of each world. Most of them are actually pretty straightforward to get, just needing a certain animal friend and ability, though some can be a tad tedious and require some backtracking to get the correct animal friend needed, or careful movement underwater to make sure you don't lose your ability. All in all, I do like the inclusion of having multiple endings as it offers replayability and encourages more exploration. There's also optional side games such as a boss rush per tradition of this series, and a minigame you can do for 100% where you have to collect all the stars while avoiding attacks from bosses on 1 health. They're a neat distraction, but nothing more. When it comes to the overall presentation, I feel Kirby's Dream Land 2 is very impressive for the system it was on. Various sprite work feels a tad more refined than that of Dream Land 1, such as Kirby and Wispy Woods. The backgrounds are very detailed and appealing, but never feel too cluttered. You always have a clear eye on where Kirby's meant to be, which while it sounds like a no-brainer, is a problem many Game Boy titles faced when trying to go for more impressive visuals. Dream Land 2 strikes a perfect balance between appealing and detailed. This game's art style is one that has heavily inspired me, and is one I've frequently tried to recreate in the past. I don't recommend playing the game on a Game Boy Color or Advance though. The color palette, while it's really nostalgic for me as it's how I used to play it, it really isn't all that appealing. That's not all, however. This game also had support for the Super Game Boy. First off, the game gets a border around it, showcasing Parasol Kirby and the Animal Buddies. I always loved it when the Super Game Boy would give certain games their own special border to showcase elements of the game and add a greater level of charm to the experience. The one for Star Stacker was always one of my favorites. The other main thing it does is give each world their own special color palette to help them stand out more. It helps keep the experience a tad more fresh, I feel. Overall, while it's not one of the most impressive usages of it, I still like the Super Game Boy support for the game and wish Nintendo would re-release this version more often. Lastly, the game was also re-released on the Nintendo Wii as part of Kirby's Dream Collection, making it one of the very few Game Boy games to ever get re-released on the system. Unfortunately, there is no option to use the Super Game Boy version. However, this version does have a nice little pink border, using various little sprites, so it's something at the very least. While not as iconic as the original Dreamland, Dreamland's 2 soundtrack does offer a fair amount of variety and fits the areas in which they play quite well. There are even some remixes of tracks from prior games such as DDD's theme from the first game and Red Canyon, which uses Yogurt Yard's theme from Adventure. Each of the animal friends even had their own music tracks that play whenever you're using them. They're easily my favorite tracks in the game. However, I do wish you had the option to listen to the actual level music instead. Fun fact, there is an unused track in the game that can be accessed within the game's sound test, as FGM94. This song nearly 20 years later would get remade and used in Triple Deluxe under the name The Cave in the Sky, which is used for Stage 2 of Fine Fields.
After finding and obtaining all 7 pieces of the Rainbow Drop, you're able to go up against the true final boss of the game. The fight starts off with King DDD, who appears to be asleep, unaware of the events going on. His fight is similar to those from the previous games, however a tad more challenging I feel. Afterwards, dark matter flees from DDD's body and blasts into the sky. Kirby, now using the Rainbow Sword, follows after him. For the first phase, he takes on his dark matter blade form, and has one of the sickest designs to come out of the franchise. He attacks by dashing forward, firing energy beams from his sword, and by launching energy orbs. Kirby can defend himself by deflecting the orbs, or by doing minor damage by slashing him with the sword. The second phase has him go into his true form, however many of the same rules and concepts apply here. I'd say the battle is very similar to Nightmares from Adventure, but more challenging and engaging. I find it to be a pretty cool fight. I just wish it refilled your health before moving on to the second phase. On a side note, while he doesn't physically appear in the game as a fighter or assist trophy, Smash Ultimate does actually have a spirit battle based on this member of the Dark Matter game. His spirit battle takes place on the Halberd, and starts off against DDD with his Game Boy ult before changing to Meta Knight, all while 02's theme plays, and Nightmare blocks the screen. It's a pretty cool nod to the original fight, and honestly one of the better Kirby themed spirit battles. After defeating dark matter, Kirby begins to fall from the sky, as the animal friends and DDD look on. Kirby then grabs a hold of the rainbow sword and uses it to form a rainbow, ending the events of Kirby's Dream Land 2.
Even after all these years, Kirby's Dream Land 2 still holds up very well. While it might be considered the black sheep of the series by most, I feel it expands upon its predecessor in a meaningful way and serves as a great start to what would later be known as the Dark Matter trilogy. Now, if only the marketing for the game wasn't so bizarre.
Will you be my friend?
I don't think I'm getting sleep tonight.